Okay, we're live. This is kind of a different episode of Future Chat. Mike is of course joining me. How you doing, Mike?
Great as always.
Nick Nick is not here today. Apparently Easter and family and other commitments, but we're gonna soldier on without him, of course.
It's ironic that Nick is the one to value that over the show.
It is. It's ironic.
Yes, it is ironic and ironic.
So as Mike and I were discussing briefly before we started, this show we're gonna take it in a slightly different direction. And probably not go as long, not go to our normal Future Chat hour and 15-minute show. Although I want to add a caveat that I don't know because this might go off the rails. But we're going to try a slightly different format. We have, I think, one technically topical news story, but we kind of want to talk about some things we've been waiting to talk about. And so that being said, Mike, I have some news that you already know, but for the sake of the listeners, I'm going to tell you again. I am now subscribed to an online backup service.
I had no idea.
And you may have heard of it if you listen to podcasts. It's called Backblaze. This is, you asked me if this was the one on Hello Internet, and indeed it is. But many other podcasts have been advertising Backblaze for at least the last 2 or 3, maybe even longer years. They've been doing it for a long time. They first had a Mac app, their former Apple engineers that wrote kind of a real hardcore Mac app, because if you want backup software, you want it to be really robust, and that's what they did. But it turns out they've also ported it to Windows. Well, I don't know if they ported it, but they built a version for Windows.
I'd hope they didn't port it.
Yeah.
But
And so I have the Windows one on my computer because I now have, as it turns out, unfortunately, one of the consequences of growing up, you end up collecting some stuff. So I have 1.8 terabytes of stuff that I don't want to lose, and I'm apparently willing to pay $5 a month for it now.
now, Rob, before you continue,
Yeah.
is this 1.8, or for the sake of discussion, 2 terabytes of data that's been curated and assessed on its worth? Or is this just, I have 2 terabytes and I don't want to actually go through the hassle of assessing whether it's worth saving?
Well, so here's the thing with, I'll answer that question. I have done some curation. I'll get more into that point in a minute, but with Backblaze, the beautiful thing about Blackblaze, which is hilariously what they call it on some podcasts that can't pronounce the name, and it's a running joke, and blackblaze.com actually is registered and points to backblaze.com. They don't care what you have connected to your computer, as long as you're any USB drives or your main hard drive, all you can choose to back entirely up for $5 a month. And so I don't have to have curated it. But that being said, if every time I get within about 50 gigabytes of the last terabyte full, so I get down to about 50 gigabytes remaining, I go through and I delete a bunch of stuff I feel like I don't need anymore. So it's kind of been refined, but I haven't actually gone through everything. I've just kind of deleted the lowest thing, the thing I need the least. And so I'm getting tight. But the main reason I wanted to get this backup service was, well, first of all, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but on Thursday or Friday, maybe Thursday night, I think it was, I had my hard drive or my computer restarted. And as people who have been working with hard drives for a while know, when your computer restarts and when like everything turns off and back on, that's typically the failure point of older hardware, is that it just goes to sleep and never wakes up again. And so that I feel like that almost happened. I don't know how close it was, but my hard drive's like 5 years old, and this poor little guy, it took 3 or 4 kind of, I guess I was doing CPR. I was like turning it off for 10 seconds, turning it back on, just hoping. It eventually did come back to life, but all these metaphors are very somber. It eventually started working again, and at that point, having had that happen every once in a while, I said every 6 months before we started the show. This is 6 months to a year. It was a, a technical failure rate that eventually got resuscitated. That was big enough, and the hard drive was old enough that I thought, all right, this is worth $5 a month to just not have to worry about. Even
Right.
if something did crash, I would just go buy a new hard drive and kind of put everything that was there back onto it.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about Backblaze is once it's done, sort of similar to Google Drive, but or Dropbox for your entire computer. Once it has everything backed up, which is it's now going through the process, it kind of just every time you change a file, it just syncs those changes, and so you get peace of mind that you don't have to keep kind of doing backups every day or something. It just kind of keeps working in the background. And they're actually really fast. When I first started, they recommended a backup rate of about 5 gigabytes a day, and I was just thinking that'll take like 6 years.
Right.
And so I eventually, because we have now, I'm on Bell Internet, which is unlimited, and so I have 50/50 fiber.
Nice.
And yeah, so my first test, I was like, okay, well, if I use one backup thread, you can choose from 1 to 10 backup threads, and you can choose either to have faster networking or faster backups. Like there's a slider. I immediately slid the thing all the way to faster backups, and it was only using about 10% of my connection. And so I did that for a couple hours, and I was like, I can still play HD video. This is fine. So I cranked it up to 2, and then 3, and then 4 backup threads. And at that point, it was taking up, I think it was around 17 megabits a second, which is about a third of my network. Still, I was able to play HD video just fine. And so last night, I finally just opened it up. I basically, I did
Open the
all 10 backup
floodgates.
threads.
Yeah.
It said it was supposed to be 230 or something gigabytes a day. And it was 58 megabits a second up, which really that's 120% of my connection. And I was still able to stream. Like I was watching the Bell TV. I was watching hockey last night on my tablet, and it was working fine. So I don't know how fiber connections work, but they're like reverse throttling me. They're like, oh, you have some extra bandwidth. Here's more bandwidth just for you. Like kudos to Bell and kudos to Backblaze, because that's pretty awesome.
So since we're 95% of the way to an unsolicited ad for Backblaze, what is their pricing scheme and limits and all that kind of stuff for those curious?
So basically, they advertise no limits. It's basically as fast as your ISP is willing to upload stuff, they will take it. And it's $5 a month. No, there's no limits except that it's $5 a month per computer.
And there's no data caps?
No.
Okay.
And they have a service where, I mean, eventually I'm going to contact Backblaze and be like, hey, we talked about your service for 5 minutes. This is not an ad. They're not paying me, although that may happen in the future because they're really cool and they advertise podcasts. But they just released a new product that's basically similar to Amazon S3 storage, just like kind of not cold storage, but like app storage. And so you can do that as well. They will also, if your computer crashes and you don't want to have to, like you have a slow connection or something, you don't want to deal with having to re-download everything on your hard drive, they will actually, for like $100 or something, like you basically cover the cost of a hard drive and they'll ship you a hard drive with all your stuff on it. So yeah, they're a pretty cool service. But this is my first actual experience with the program, with actually backing up. And it's been extremely painless so far. It's been probably about 48 hours, between 48 and 72 hours, I would think. And of my 107,000 files, totaling 1.876 thousand megabytes, so like 1.87 terabytes, it has done over 90% of the files, and it's about 10% of the total. It seems to be prioritizing small files. Right now it's on MP3s, and I'm guessing it's going to do videos last. So I'm going to get to like the last 2,500 or something episodes. Last time I looked, I had about 2,500 episodes of TV on my hard drive. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But right now I'm doing an HD video chat and backing up at Uh, 5.19 megabits a second. I turned it back down for the episode. I turned it back down to one backup thread.
So, kind of expanding the discussion as it
Yeah.
relates to cloud storage. This is different than cloud storage, right?
I mean, technically, it still is cloud storage, but it's
Well,
different.
yeah.
It's non-selective. I mean, in this case, like Dropbox, you have basically a whitelist where everything you put in this one folder gets backed up. But Backblaze is the exact reverse, in that it by default it backs up everything, and you can select folders you don't want backed up.
Right. But what I mean by it's not cloud storage is you can't access this remotely and just manage your files
You
through
can
their
download the
service.
files.
Right. But you can't, like Google Drive wise, you can't just go in, navigate through the files. If you're not at your computer, you can't.
Well, their website, you can go and look at files and like restore them, quote unquote. Like you can download them to whatever device.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you can't go in and like edit a file unless you have a computer that's running, like the backup is running on.
Right. But if I have my computer backed up and I'm in Australia,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
go
oh crap,
restore
that
one
file's on my
file.
computer. I can go and just get on whatever computer, go to Backblaze, download that file,
Yeah,
and without any sort of additional hassle. It's just
right. Yeah, it's pretty good.
because I'm comparing to Google Drive, and so 1 terabyte of drive is $10 a month.
Yeah,
and 10 is 100.
Mhm.
Whereas this seems to be $5 a month with no limits.
Right.
And it does the same thing in essence, except for having the functionality of the Google Drive program, so to speak.
Yeah, you don't have the syncing, for instance, between multiple computers.
And you don't have the live editing online. Right. Yeah.
But other than that, it compares very favorably.
Okay.
Like as a backup solution, it's very favorable. As a kind of everything backup. I don't think I would ever actually restore. Like if my hard drive crashed as soon as we finished this recording and my backup completed, if my hard drive crashed, I wouldn't go and restore from the backed up hard drive. I would go get a new computer, get a new hard drive, whatever, and then I would put the files I needed back on.
As you needed them almost.
Yeah, I wouldn't like these systems, like any backup system restores a bunch of system files. You don't actually like, you wouldn't want, in an ideal world, you wouldn't want to put them back on to a different hard drive. Like that was the problem you had with your SSD, is that you were trying to back up to something that was different than the initial medium, and it doesn't work all that well.
Yeah, well, it was trying to mirror, right? It was trying to restore through a mirrored image. And yeah, like you said, it has all the system files, and when you install applications, it put things places and does run scripts and all that kind of stuff. But if you're just trying to copy and paste, it doesn't do the same thing.
Right.
So
you don't want to back up or download Windows, all the Windows system files. You don't want to download them from Windows CDN, have Windows install them, and then put your files back on.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, obviously that takes a bit longer, but yeah. So I've always seen the value in backups, but I never had a computer for long enough that the hardware was anywhere near kind of a failure point.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was going to happen eventually, and I'm kind of excited that it happened now. Like now I'm really an adult. I'm backing up my files,
right.
And so I'm not gonna subscribe to Backblaze for my laptop, because my protocol so far has been anytime I'm done with files there, I either put them in Google Drive or I put them on my hard drive, like I move them over.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have any need for, the only thing I have on there are programs and the files I'm currently working on, which are backing up to Google Drive. So this is kind of the one-stop shop for me. And I think the second my hard drive or computer does fail, I'm going to be very happy, as opposed to being very, very sad.
Yeah. Yeah. The way my backup systems work now is like you have Google Drive on my desktop, and I make a point to save anything that I'd want to use later in my Drive folder. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just on the desktop as a temporary file, so to speak, and then just delete it after. Or it wouldn't be a big loss if it was gone.
Yeah.
Work-wise, we have a system where it backs up the network drives to two different external drives. So you alternate them on a week by week basis. So you always have at least a 1 week backup between
Right.
the two drives. So from that aspect, and I think it gets backed up nightly, I believe.
Okay.
So if again with that, if my work computer failed, then I'd have a backup of all the network stuff, and I don't keep anything really on my work computer as far as my own files. So
Yeah.
locally anyway. So, but I heard about Backblaze, like you mentioned, from Hello Internet, and it sounded intriguing, especially the $5 per month price point. Like that seems to be fairly reasonable for having that service, especially if there are no limits. Like to me, the $2 a month for drive storage is fairly a no-brainer.
Yeah, that.
But once you get into $10 a month for a terabyte, that's almost like whoa, like hold on there.
Why
But
is
the
that so
five,
much more?
but the $5 seems okay.
Yeah.
For what Backblaze offers. So
yeah, we've been talking in recent weeks about the comparison between $2 for 100 gigs of storage versus Slack's $8, $7 or $8, and then Feedly's $5.41 or $7 if you go monthly, and just comparing services. And I think Google Drive, to me, I don't even know if it wins out. Like, it offers extra services, but in terms of just that raw 100 gigabytes, I think Backblaze might even be a little better.
Well, that's kind of what I'm starting to think when you're talking how you actually can access it remotely from wherever you are and download it without any issue. Like, to me, that almost seems better than Drive, because like the good thing with Drive though, and what I've actually been using a lot more recently, is being able to share files just with a link and have people view and edit them. You can set permissions, you can collaborate. Backblaze wouldn't allow that thing. It's you can download a file and send it as an attachment, but Drive allows you to share links and collaborate. But like, I've done that actually quite a bit lately, just making a point to, almost, because it's like, well, I have it there, I'll send a link. I was actually literally going to send an attachment. I was like, well, I'll just send a Drive link. Like, it's already there. I would have downloaded it and attached it. I was like, I'll just send a link, right?
Especially if you're sending, I find if you're sending to a Gmail user, a known Gmail user, there's no confusion. If you're sending it to someone on Outlook, they might get confused and not exactly know, if they're not familiar with kind of backups and stuff. But if you're on Gmail, even if you post a Drive link in the body of the email, it'll show them a file, which is nice.
But see, if it comes across a non-Drive user, I'd be thrilled to explain to them the benefits of it. Right. So it's like, it's a win-win, really.
Oh man. I was looking to give my mom a Google Drive tutorial about 2 months ago. And so I was going back through the archives of old Google Drive promo videos, just seeing how they explained it. And it was very much like that. It was like very condescendingly, did you know you don't have to attach files anymore? You can just send the Drive link.
Right.
But it's from like 2006, 2007. I don't even know if Drive was actually around by then, but I feel like it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are getting there. Most people I know, like most people who are not as technically knowledgeable, would still be like, oh, send in an email or things. But I'm just like, I haven't attached something to an email in so long. Unless it explicitly says attach to email, like for a job or something, then I will always just send the link. Like, that's my default now. Why would you ever send? And I've been talking, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I've been thinking about this for a while. It seems like everything, and I love this, everything on the web has a link now. Like, if you send a Google Drive link, you send them straight to the link. Like, now even Facebook Messenger, you can save a link directly to a thread. If you go to messenger.com, each conversation has an individual number, like a 16-digit number or whatever. I love that things have a URL.
Right.
But I wish emails had a URL. I wish I could share an email with a link. I hate having to forward emails. I don't know if that's just because I really like bookmarking things. Like, I'd love to save an email by link, and you can't.
Right.
And that's like the only thing you can't.
Right.
Everything else you can save.
Yeah, like at least with Outlook, you can attach an email to an email. And I've done that before. But yeah, I know what I kind of know what you're talking about with that, because it's like we've already talked about it already. Just refer to this
Yeah,
email
exactly.
chain, but you can't really do that. Like the most you could do is print an email to a PDF and then
Yeah,
attach that.
yeah.
So
Which is not, yeah, not the same at all.
no.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to report back, but I love my backups. The curious thing for me, like Google Drive for me is not a backup. Google Drive is my
Right.
default place where I put files. But really, now that I'm an adult and have income, like regular income compared to being a student and being kind of underemployed, I knew backups were important.
Hmm.
I was just like, my stuff isn't old enough or important enough to need backing up. And I hit that crucial point where I had a minor heart attack when my hard drive didn't start up. Because not that this is super important, but I actually moved my Google Drive folder to my external drive. So at that point, when the hard drive wasn't booting up, I looked over at my Google Drive icon on the taskbar and it was grayed out because it couldn't find the Google Drive folder. I was like, I know you're backed up, but this is so
No.
stressful.
Yeah. So they have software that just locally backs up to another
Mhm.
drive, right?
Yeah.
And it might even be a Windows
Windows, yeah,
application.
Windows has that.
Yeah. So because you could put in like a thumb drive and have a specific folder back up to that thumb drive and
In theory,
dynamically like sync
yeah,
itself, right?
yeah.
And that sounds okay. Because there are like I'd say like my local drive has maybe like a gig worth of my own stuff,
Okay.
right? That if my work computer is fried, then I probably would want back.
Yeah.
And right now it's not currently being backed up as far as I know. So it would be good, I guess, to have that. So maybe I should probably look into that a little bit.
You, this before we move on from backups, I kind of want to just discuss with you a what if scenario, and this is more like a theoretical exercise than something you should actually do.
Okay.
But I'd be curious if you suggested, I forget what they call this. I know they have a term for it in technology. I'll have to look it up. I feel like it's something to do with a monkey. Maybe it's like, I can't remember. I'm gonna make a fool of myself trying to remember. But basically, you have your work backup system in place and everything's
Mhm.
backing up and everything's fine. I'm curious to see what would happen if you basically ran a system test of your backup system. If so, say give employees or one employee or whatever, however big you want the test to be, give them a week or 3 days or something and say, you are going to lose this hard drive in 3 days. You need to prepare for this. And whatever you don't have backed up or whatever you don't have in the system is going to be lost. And see, first of all, how they manage what they have to change about their routine, and
Right.
then see how difficult or easy it is to recover from that loss of hard drive. Like basically what I would imagine doing is when they go home for work that day, someone comes in and physically removes their hard drive, like a boss or something. And it's like, here's your new hard drive. We saw your backup failed, and so your hard drive is dead. And basically, here's a new hard drive. Put it in the computer, install Windows, and then recover from this issue, and just see
Mhm.
how hard it would be. Because everyone has a good backup strategy until it's put in motion, and then it's like, and then suddenly you see the failing points of
Right.
where it'd be really hard to get certain stuff back.
Right.
So I'm curious because I don't know what my work has in place. I don't know what your work has in place, other
Right.
than the fact that everyone has like dusted their hands off and said, all right, we have a backup system. Like
Right.
I'm curious how robust our work backup systems actually are.
Right. I'll use a real life example because this actually
Mhm.
happened when there was a electrical fire or failure of some sort downtown, and it wiped out like 10 blocks of buildings power.
Yeah.
And so for that week, we were needing to work in a different location. And so our company has two offices, one in one part of Calgary, one downtown.
Mhm.
So my manager and I were working out of this other office. And because our file structure was all network based and those networks were being backed up, we were able to physically take the drives, the backed up network drives, and plug them in a different place, and they went live. And we were able to remap the drive where it was looking for the drives and being able to still access them. So that was fine. The things that we weren't able to do was I guess it'd be like IP specific license keys for software.
Yeah.
So we had this one network license for one piece of software that we needed to get like a temporary license from the software provider because we weren't able to access it. And it's like, hey, well, help us out here.
Yeah.
So they were able to do that. And yeah, for the most part, electronically, we were able to manage. What we weren't able to was because we weren't in that actual office as far as like hard copies, we just kind of had to keep it all in this different location and then move them all back over to the other one. So the biggest downfall was the physical aspect. Digitally, we were actually fairly okay.
Yeah.
The biggest thing was just the preparedness aspect, because when this all happened, we're like, oh crap, what do we do? And then we had to just in that moment come up with a plan. We didn't really have a like, oh, okay, we know what to do. This is, relocation plan A or whatever, and then just go and do it. We were like, okay, it was like, and it was over a weekend too. So it was like, I was like a Saturday and my manager and I were moving stuff over to this other office and all this kind of stuff. So that was the only lack of preparedness, so to speak, where we just didn't have the plan at hand, but we were able to have it come together with the systems we had in place. But again, if I had to access anything from my own local computer drive, I wouldn't have been able to do that. But because most or all of those files are not things I need on a daily basis, then that was pretty much fine. Like a lot of that stuff that's on there is kind of more just reference material I come across that I just want to save, but isn't really company-wide, reference material. So I'll just keep on my local drive.
Sure.
So that's why I'll put it on there. But that's our backup system, and it seems to have worked.
Yeah, it seems like it held up.
Yeah. I think the government should have a similar.
Yeah, they have
thing.
backup systems for sure. I don't know that their robustness has ever been tested, but I do know we were having a conversation this past week about hard copies and how we now in a lot of programs we've started moving to digital, but everyone, well, I say everyone, people still print stuff off and keep a hard copy. I did that once in one of my old jobs a couple of years ago because I was forced to. Right. It's just like, this is not the future. Why are we we have this backup copy on our hard drives. Why are we printing off a copy to put in a cabinet and it literally never be looked at?
Right.
But yeah, our systems are pretty good. But again, they haven't been tested. I'd be curious to see what would happen if my hard drive just failed at home. But I know there are a few files on my work computer that they're saved on my local hard drive and nowhere else, simply because our backup system is so bad. It's so, I don't want to say it's old because it's not that old, but it is not modern.
Mm-hmm.
So the system doesn't work with Windows. It's a layer on top of Windows, and saving things, you have to save them somewhere in the network structure or in kind of your little home directory, but those two don't communicate with each other.
Okay.
And so rather than saving in my little home directory, which is more meant for personal kind of files, there's no kind of scratch workspace that backs up. And that's where, like, I keep all these things that are ongoing and that I kind of don't want to finalize yet. I don't want to put them somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so those files are just kind of in limbo. If my computer was gone tomorrow or on Tuesday when I went to work, I would just have to restart them because they're just gone. Right. And that to me is a failure of the backup system, not necessarily the actual kind of structure of the way our backups work. Everything that would need to be backed up would be backed up, except for these files, because there's nowhere to put them.
That's pretty much exactly where I am as well, where I have everything backed up except for just a set type of file.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I just need to get a USB drive that, a 16 gig that just backs up everything that's not already being backed up.
Mhm.
And then I know that I can just grab that USB drive and it's fine.
Yeah.
But
So I'm going to report back once this backup is done and on how it's keeping up, because I've never backed up files. Like every week or so we generate 1.5 gigs of audio. I haven't seen how the robustness of that holds up, but I'm guessing with our internet speed and robustness, it'll probably be okay.
mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad to have a no bandwidth cap, because otherwise I would be destroying it this month trying to back everything up, or it would take months to actually get it all backed up if I wanted to go slow enough. I was looking through and I have 50 gigabytes of uploads from the day before yesterday. And I'm kind of curious to see, now that I opened the pipe wide open, what it's going to look like. It's probably going to be 100 and 150 gigabytes of stuff backed up.
Right.
Yeah. So did you have anything else to say on backups, or?
No, I think you could probably move on. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a story here that you thought might lead to a bigger discussion.
Yes. So internet commenting is kind of like, you have forums dedicated to commenting on stuff. Your Reddits, your 4chan's. 4chan's probably a bad example, but it's kind of it's those places where you go that you know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have internet comment sections where it's normal people generally that are coming across it, that they either go there with the intent to do something or they don't know what they're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And as a example of this, Engadget, just one of the many tech blogs and tech journals on the internet, I don't know if they had a comment section before, but they at least reopened one. I think they're migrating comment services because I guess now these sites have, third-party comment sections, or it's kind of
Usually,
a unified system like Discuss or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Engadget was kind of migrating their service, and they reopened the comment section. And I guess it's news to them that people are horrible and comment sections are the depths of the internet. But they basically said, we tried and it wasn't constructive, so we're shutting it down and trying again later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've talked about comment section before, at least you have on your blog, I think, and just in general. But do you find benefit to having a comment section?
There definitely
Personally
can be benefit. That there is a positive aspect to comment systems in general, but pretty much any platform is subject to people saying or doing terrible things. You could write a blog post on any blog platform, hit post, and someone could go grab that link, share it on Twitter along with something stupid or homophobic or racist or whatever.
Yeah.
And
or something intelligent or constructive.
No, but in
right.
a
Yeah,
negative
I know what
example,
you're saying. Sure. Yeah.
They can do that, and they can post it and tag you in it and be like, you're an idiot.
Right.
Or something much, much worse. And you can do that. If you have comments open, you can do it directly on your page. And same with, like you mentioned, same with good comments. Someone could leave a beautiful, intelligent comment on Facebook. They could fill the entire 62,500 whatever characters with like this beautiful essay that's 5 times as long as what you wrote, but it's so well written, and it perfectly addresses all the things, and it gets along with you, and it disagrees with you thoughtfully, all like beautiful. And neither of those situations are affected by whether or not your blog has a comment system. I would say, to me, the benefit of having a comment system on your actual page is that you are much more likely to see, like, it takes someone doing something exactly right in order for you to see a comment someone makes about your thing if it's not on your site. Mm-hmm. If they put it on Facebook, they'd have to tag you, and your settings have to be right, and their settings have to be right. If you do it on Twitter, they'd have to know your Twitter handle. They'd have to know you check it a lot. And in theory, comments could work the same way. You don't have to necessarily check comments as an admin of a website, but they tend to, especially bigger sites like Engadget. So I get not wanting to have to moderate comments, but I definitely think there's also room for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of on the same page as you, because my experience with comment sections, you have CBC's done. I think that CBC.ca has had a similar directive or change to their site where I believe they're disabling commenting.
Okay.
I can't remember if they're disabling it or more
I,
heavily moderate. I think maybe they're more heavily moderating it. I think
yeah.
that was the issue. And so that's one example. And then you have, say, places like Vox,
Yeah.
where they don't have comment sections, but if you follow them on Facebook, their Facebook posts, like they'll post their own articles on Facebook, and they'll get hundreds of comments, and lots of upvoting and lots of sub replies to comments. So that in a sense, that is their comment platform, but it's not hosted directly on their site. So because that discussion is still taking place, the lack of a comment section isn't really hurting them.
Right.
Because people still, if you read Vox, you kind of know where to go to participate in discussion about the articles, if that's what you're looking for. And I don't know if these Facebook comments are moderated by Vox or whoever, but either way, the discussion is taking place. Now, Twitter is kind of a different story. I find Twitter doesn't really foster the same sort of discussion, and really isn't really a suitable platform for a widespread discussion on something. That's just more of a downfall of Twitter being Twitter. I think Facebook is a bit more conducive to that kind of thing because it's just a bit more static. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying, that if you have a comment section hosted right on your page, it's a lot more direct and you know where to go for it. But again, if someone's coming across your article and they scroll to the bottom and there's a bunch of bad comments that haven't been moderated, then that could potentially drive someone away. Whereas if you go to Facebook to participate in discussion, you have to seek it out a bit more, I think. Or you just are more, you kind of expect it a bit more, it being Facebook versus being your actual site.
Yeah.
Now, Ottawa News.
Yeah.
I know a while ago you guys were talking about comment sections.
Yeah.
How has that worked out for you guys?
So what happened was, on one of the posts that we did, I think it was the one about the tunnels under our subway.
Okay.
I forget even what it was. I'll have to look it up.
It was abandoned subway tunnels being used for transit or something. Yeah.
There were 5 or 6 comments, and people were focusing attention on something that didn't need any attention focused on it. So in general, we love comments.
Yeah.
And we mostly think that these quote unquote bad ones are funny. But in this case, there were just, people kept building on them and like posting really, really, really long comments that were just weird and not necessary.
Okay.
And a bit kind of not in good taste is probably the best way to put it. And so I started off removing comments, and then this person started, one of the people that was commenting, they were commenting anonymously. It's worth noting. You can put in your name, attach a Google Plus profile or Google Blogger or whatever profile, but they were choosing to be anonymous. And so I was removing their comments, like moderating them. And then they started going, "This is censorship. You can't silence me. Stop deleting my comments." And I was like, great. And turned comments off on that post. So the nice thing about Blogger is that you can on individual posts, you can turn off comments. And so that's the direction we chose to go. And that's the direction I will go if that ever happens again with like that specific thing. Like, we get things all the time talking about people pointing out that this is satire on the comments, right. And that totally fine with. We're totally fine with people saying, like, posting something like what happened on March 15th. This is incredibly stupid. I
Right.
don't know exactly if they're talking about the story or if they're talking about people's response to it. But yeah, we had a guy who went really in depth about Canada. We posted about how Canada wanted to secede from
Right.
Ottawa. And this guy went deep. He posted like a 100-word comment about like talking about empire builders and government and how people in Ottawa have spoken governmentese since birth. They're mind washed public servants, like all of this crazy stuff. And I'm like, that's pretty funny. I like that. We're gonna leave that there. But yeah, there's so many things where it's like, yeah, this is fine. And then it gets to a line and you're like, no, I don't want this on my site anymore.
Right.
And so at one time it got to the point where I was like, don't, if it either hurts somebody or is just like hurtful in general, then I have no problem removing it. Like that is not what censorship is.
Mhm.
Someone removing something that on the platform that they control, they're well within their rights to do that. Ottawa News is not the government, as much as we think that would be hilarious if it was. And so that's the stance that we've taken, is that in general, we're not going to delete comments anymore.
Mhm.
But we will shut down the comment section and like remove it. There's 3 settings. There's the one where anyone can comment. There's the one where comments are closed but still visible, and there's the one where they're just gone.
Mhm.
And so our thing has been, if something like that happens again, it's just going to be the comment section is going to disappear for that
Right.
post.
Yeah, I think where comment sections are offer an added benefit is where it fosters a community, because in a lot of these comment sections you see that there's people who know each other from other comments, and there's a constructive discussion, even if it's critical, is still, and there's inside jokes and all this kind of stuff, right? Like it's, and I think that's a good thing to have, because it serves its own purpose. But I can see why some sites either don't want that at all, even that aspect, or it's just, yeah, like you said, gotten to the point where it's just not constructive and abusive and just not beneficial for anyone to have. So
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny where, especially a site like Engadget, where, they're a tech site. So it's like, oh, we found that people were being blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what did you expect? Like,
Yeah.
you're not new to the internet, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know how much more you have to say on this, but I'm going to close out at least my comments on comments by posting a link to a startup. I guess they're a startup. I don't really know how this works. Who's a startup and who's a unicorn? They might be a unicorn. Called Civil Comments, and it's run by at least one pretty influential tech person. And basically, what they're trying to do is make it easier to deal with comments if you want to have them, and have people kind of consider their audience and consider the comment section they're posting in when posting. So it's similar to Discuss. I always call it Discus, in that it's kind of a thing where you embed a comment section in each post by like algorithmically, but it's not actually hosted on the site itself. It's hosted elsewhere. But it lets the person who's posting a comment kind of reflect on whether, like, it even includes messaging that way, like reflect on this post. Is it contributing to the conversation? Is it, like, it gives you explicit language and instructions of how to leave a positive comment. And then there's other systems where kind of the group is able to moderate things. And I think there's also algorithms that will like remove if certain words are in the post, it just won't let you post it. And with the goal being that it doesn't force you to leave positive comments, but it encourages you much more than
Right.
most other things to leave a positive comment, or like at least a constructive comment, not necessarily positive,
Right.
but at least not negative or horrible in any way.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
almost, I
yeah,
think they're working off of the idea that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything.
yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, you're reducing the number of comments, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, in most cases, it's
Yeah.
a good thing. Like, oh man, it's sad. Cracked is one of the first websites that I ever read, just like the funny stories, the articles, the videos. They started recently posting their videos to YouTube. I guess not recently, but like in the last year and a half, posting stuff to YouTube. So I'm much more likely to watch it because I get subscribed and
Sure.
I see it.
Yeah.
And every time there's a girl hosting whatever thing,
Right.
they're all like, at least half the comments are like, wow, she's hot, or
Right.
she's ugly, or
Right.
like in equal measure, it's always
Right.
just about their
But see,
their attractiveness.
there's people that do that like intentionally to either troll or just to be funny. Like I at least that's how I see it. When like there's some that do
I
it
agree.
genuinely as far as just being gross, but there are people I think who just do it to try to be funny because that's what's expected, right?
Right.
Like I don't know. It's
But I think that there's far more people not realizing that it's not a joke than there are people like, ha ha ha, this is what I need to say.
right.
And yeah, the leap from going from thinking, wow, that's a nice outfit, or she looks good, to actually posting it in a comment section.
Right.
When you could scroll through the comments, like it's clear to me that most people who post comments don't read any other comment before or after doing so. Because if they did, they would see that their comment is exactly like, if they are making a joke, they're making a joke that's been made right below
Right.
40,000 times. Like you don't need to add that.
Right.
Yeah. But so that's one example. Like Crack tends to have really bad comment sections. I noticed, I don't know if they're just not fans of change, but some of their writers tend to be much more experimental with comedy, kind of like Kyle Mooney at the end of SNL episodes the last couple of years, where they're not jokes in the sense that like everyone's going to get this and laugh and think it's funny, but it's more like a certain sense of humor is going to find this hilarious and other people are going to be like, what is this? This is so dumb.
Right.
And it tends to be new writers or new performers or whatever, if it's in the case of video, that kind of bring in this more experimental thing, and it's almost universally hated for the first like 6 months that they're on the staff and then never mentioned again. Like I remember when I first started, or maybe shortly after I started reading Cracked, Cody Johnston was hired. This is very inside Cracked, so if you don't read Cracked or pay attention to them, then you're not going to know what's going on. But Cody Johnston had just started and everyone was like, this guy's terrible. What is he doing here? Like he doesn't belong on the site. He's not funny. He's so dumb. And then it's just like, he still does dumb stuff. And like, it is pretty dumb. He would probably even say the same thing. But now that kind of commentary is not there anymore. Either they got used to it or like people just hate change. And that I'm also seeing that with this girl, the new one. I think her name is Carmen, but I could be wrong. I'm seeing the exact same kind of comments. Like, she's not funny. This is the worst thing I've ever seen on Cracked. It's like, definitely not the worst thing. You are giving other things way too much credit. Like, it's not that, like, obviously I think most of the stuff is funny or I wouldn't read it, but that was definitely not the low bar by any stretch. And so these people are either sexist or just completely opposed to change, just to be opposed to change.
Right.
Yeah. But anyways, the comments it's fine.
Yeah. No, I guess conclude on mine. For my own use of comment sections, I'm usually the type to read an article, have a reaction to it, and then I'll immediately see if other people have had the same reaction, almost as kind of like a self-check, like, am I the only one here that saw this? And, sure enough, at the top, 5 comments, someone's said, had the same feeling about something as me.
Yeah.
I generally don't participate in comment sections if my thought on it has already been discussed at length. I'll just kind of read through, see what's been said, like, okay, that whatever. Like, and I'll usually try to read the top couple comment threads just out of entertainment, I guess, to see what people are saying. With Twitter is a bit different because I know that I'm generally engaging someone. Like, if someone posts an article on whatever and I post a comment, there's a, say, 50-50 chance they'll get a reply. Whereas on Facebook, you're either talking with the people who are also commenting or you're just commenting into the abyss. So that's how I use it. And same with on like sites, like tech sites, like on mobile server, I'll randomly comment on something. If something hasn't been brought up before, if something's been said, I'll upvote it or something, but I won't necessarily just participate in this for the sake of discussion, just because I don't have the energy for that a lot of the time. But yeah, I think this civil comments thing is an interesting concept, and I think it's for sites where they want to offer a comment section, but they're not wanting to unleash the hounds and just kind of, maybe open Pandora's box is maybe more accurate of an analogy or a metaphor. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good solution. As far as just a black and white, I don't think there's really a sure answer to whether comments are good or bad. It's just case by case, and I think you'll start seeing a lot more just try to keep that type of discussion to Facebook or Twitter versus host comments on their own site. Depending on the community and the type of comments it has. Like on like Deadspin articles, I find that those types of comments are very entertaining because, again, they have their own community. There's lots of inside jokes, and it's just fairly entertaining. It's almost as entertaining as the article itself to read through the comments. But then you have some that, like CBC comments are always like, "Oh, you leftist, blah blah blah. Oh, you conservative, blah blah." It's like, oh my gosh, like seriously. But I don't know. It's your mileage may vary on your comment section, and just if you're the one in control of what you read, then just find what you're happy reading and stick with that.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, we've been going for over 45 minutes now, so you good to wrap up for this special Easter Sunday edition?
Yes, I think we are.
Good. All right. Well, in that case, to everyone out there, thanks for listening to this week's Future Chat. You can head to unwindmedia.com/futurechat to see past episodes and subscribe to the show. And we'll see you next week.
Ciao.
Bye. I don't know if you have any desire to do an after show. Just call it.
Yeah. I don't know. We could save these other things for next week, maybe.
We can.
Just as, I guess, more follow-up, maybe, than anything.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get to the iPhone just to save Nick, but it sounds like Nick actually has some stuff to say on it. So
yeah. So I'll say one thing about this, and then you can maybe say one thing back. If we want to go into why individual people might not want to buy individual phones, I don't know. That's going to take a long time because we never do that. And we could talk about all the LG phones and all the Samsung phones and all the stuff that I do not want to buy.
You know that's not the same though, right?
No, I get that we can have a discussion about specific downsides and upsides to various products by any company.
Yeah.
But we should hold other things that we haven't seen or touched or experienced to the same standard. Like, I would love to give a theoretical review of the Galaxy S7, for instance.
Right.
If we're going to go down that route of like, I'm probably not going to buy the iPhone SE, but I wouldn't say it's a bad thing for anyone to ever buy it.
Sure.
Obviously, it's been vetted and has gone through a bunch of processes to, like, people. There are going to be people who want this phone. I know a lot of people on the internet who even are technical people that just want a smaller phone, and they are getting it or going to get it or have already ordered it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm of the same way. Like, I want to try a Windows phone. I want to try the BlackBerry Priv. I want to try a Z10. Like, these are all things that I would love to try. I may or may not like it, but I want to try it. You know, my upgrade from a Nexus 4 was the Note 4. Because since the Note came out, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's big. It has a stylus. It has a really good camera. You know, it has the different, Samsung UI. Like, and even the Note 4, the TouchWiz isn't bad. And I put the Google Now launcher on it, so it actually feels a lot more like a Nexus than a Note now, because the icon and the launcher are very Nexus based now, because that's using the Google Now launcher. Sure. But yeah, I don't know. I've really enjoyed playing with it, and at this point, I'm completely used to it, and it's not weird to me. And I've used the stylus. I use the camera regularly, so I've really enjoyed having it. But I can see why someone might not want to have it. But yeah, I think as far as the new iPhone, it's in a lot bit of a bigger spotlight just because of Apple. and they held a keynote event for it,
Mhm.
like specifically for that phone.
Well,
Like they announced other stuff too, but it was a product keynote.
maybe that's worthy of discussion, but I don't think that was. I think the FBI thing was the main reason to have that event, and then they padded it with the environment and the what was the other thing?
Why couldn't the FBI thing be like a press release though? Just Apple's comments on it.
Because well, they've made comments, but they wanted to do something public where everyone's watching. And yeah, talking about the environment in that same conversation and talking about their research kit and the updates to the new care kit, I think they wanted to give those things a public forum, because if they had released these products without any event, without any hubbub, and this is honestly the smallest amount of hubbub Apple can make while talking about a product on a stage. Like they had like 200 journalists or something. It's not that's a tiny Apple event. That's like barely an event.
Right.
I don't think they were standing up on some huge stage saying, "This is the best phone in the world."
No, and that's what I'm saying, and I think Nick and a lot of other people seem to be under the impression it was supposed to be that type of thing. But if you weren't following along, then I can understand why you'd think that. But for anyone who was following the event, it was obviously, like you said, a low key, kind of like just based on what Apple's released in the past, this type of update or this type of new product isn't that game changer the same way the 6 or 6S was.
Yep.
Right. So.
And so for me, what I always want is the best camera, good enough battery life to get me through one day, and I want the ability to be happy with the amount of screen real estate I have. And so if I was going camping or something and I wanted a thing that would let me communicate, but that I wanted to kind of be the smallest thing possible, I love that small phone. Mm-hmm. But the majority of my life, I want a thing that fits in my pocket still, but has a big screen so I can watch video or do whatever. And so that's why the bigger phone has struck a good balance for me. But what I would really want more than anything is the feature that I've talked about for a long time now, where you have a phone that's flexible, like in the other two dimensions, where you can stretch it out from an iPhone SE size up to an iPhone 6 Plus size, up to an iPad size if you really want. Like I want a stretchable screen where you can make it bigger or smaller at will. Right. And then I could have the best of both worlds. But for now, I have to kind of pick which one I want, not being able to afford both.
Right.
And for me, that one that I want is the big one.
Yeah. Yeah. And having a Note 4 as my main phone and I have a 5 as my work phone because that was a suit to me, I could never go through life with an iPhone 5 sized phone, like with the way I use my phone now. And even with the SE, like, it's for people who want a good camera, because that has a very good camera, for people who want a powerful phone just to get stuff done. But it's not a consumption device.
Right.
I guess in theory it can be, but
it could be. And I have used it as that, but it's not as good for that.
Yeah.
But anyways, we can talk about specific shortcomings of phones. I just feel like don't single this one out. If you want to do that, let's talk about all the phones.
But you guys never want to.
I agree. I don't want to. But if we're going to talk about one, let's talk about a few.
We can. We should have a phone comparison special edition of Future Chat.
Of phones we've never used.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll save that for next week then, and we'll discuss in the week to come.
Sounds good.
All right. Good talking to you.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.